Hi, my name is Jane Powell. This is Community Connections. Welcome to the show. Today, we are going to focus on a topic that is a little tricky, but you're going to love it, and you're going to be so interested, and you're going to enjoy our guest. Emma Pepper, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jane.
This is a show where we showcase community involvement and what is happening all around us, and I think you are the perfect guest today to tell us about what is happening. Emma, you have a company, Peppermill.
Yes.
So you're principal there, but you are partnering with the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation and the Appalachian Funders Network on a new initiative.
That's right.
So tell us about narrative change.
Yeah, so I'm working with the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation, and there's funding through the Appalachian Funders Network. And there's a cohort of 3 groups. There's a group in Kentucky and Tennessee, and then the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation's group in West Virginia. And we're all working on narrative change. So narrative change is a strategic effort to redefine our stories, the stories that we tell in communities and the stories that we then believe about ourselves. And when we talk about narrative change, we talk about what could a future look like where we tell different kinds of stories in our communities. I think all of us are familiar with the idea of that one-dimensional caricature, the West Virginian, whether it's Beverly Hillbillies or the idea of a hillbilly or all kinds of stories that we know in our communities are not true. And when we explain to people and talk about this idea of narrative change and that we can have the agency and the authority to redefine how we talk about ourselves and how we think about ourselves, and let that influence the good work that we can do to improve our communities, that people get really excited and want to get engaged. So I'm really proud of being part of this work.
I think this is a concept or work that has been happening, kind of brewing, so to speak, in West Virginia for this last several years. But with the partners, we're pulling it together, and we're working with you to make what you called a strategic effort to make the change. What is the first step? How do you start that?
Yeah. So narrative change is a new field, and about a decade ago, it was really more about experimentation and theory and let's throw a little bit of spaghetti at the wall. But over time, these best practices, tools for evaluation, tools that get us to concrete outcomes have started to emerge. And with that, there's new momentum in the region for this work. And new funding coming down from the national level into our region for this work. And so what we have done as a first step through the foundation is brought together what we call stakeholders from across the Kanawha Valley to work together and start to collaborate to think about what this could do. And so when I talk about stakeholders, I talk about folks from all across the board. You know, when we think about narratives and stories, we typically just think about those folks that are telling the stories, and they're absolutely involved. Creative folks like poets and artists, literary artists, storytellers like Bill Lepp, they've been engaged. And also, we've been working with creative agencies across the region, then also community and economic development folks, higher education. If we're going to make impact in this area, we need to bring together lots of different kinds of people that are influential in helping to create positive mindsets events for West Virginians. And so we have about 100 folks engaged so far, and we're looking to add more.
100 people, that's a lot. That's a
Yes.
great start.
It is a great start. It is, and it's what it takes to make change, you know. As we have seen with so many efforts in West Virginia in the past, West Virginians like to come together. We like to build community together, and so it's exciting to see all of the folks who are showing up at the table for this work too.
I think narrative change is great, but as much as we want to move forward and tell the story of how West Virginia is modern and full of technology and creative people and arts and just talent galore, we still kind of have to honor where we came from. But we do need to move forward.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you mean tapping into the history of our communities, or talk to me a little bit more?
Well, I think we want to tap into it, but we don't want to ignore it either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, we came from people who settled the land and homesteaders and all of that, and they created a great foundation for the communities that we live in now.
Yeah.
And they've changed drastically. Many of us are not farming our own food and doing all that sort of thing. You know, we're very high tech now and ordering things. I just had laundry detergent show up on my front porch the other day. So, you know, we live in a different world. And I like how narrative change brings that modern feeling into West Virginia, because I think sometimes we forget to tell that story ourselves.
Absolutely. And it's making me think about how the intention of this effort is not to only talk about positive optimism, and absolutely that's there and we want that, but we want to also acknowledge where our communities have been. Narrative change isn't about just saying what's good, it's about creating authenticity. And what we know and what we have all acknowledged and seen as West Virginians is that the stories and the portrayals of West Virginians are not authentic to who we are.
Yes.
And so that's what this initiative is trying to do. It's to reflect that authenticity of where we've been, where we're going. And I think it's important to acknowledge too that narrative change encompasses and talks about the challenges that we have in our communities today. We do have significant challenges, but many of the stories that are told in our communities are just about the challenges and not necessarily about the solutions as well. We know that we have dedicated West Virginians who are serving their communities every day, who are looking at those challenges that are really holding people back in our communities and coming up with solutions to solve them. And so the stories that we tell need to encompass both the challenges and the problems and also the ways that we can solve them.
And I'm going to quote you. I'm going to quote you back to you.
Yeah.
That the game changer lies in shifting the mindset. So we have to shift our mindset to be positive.
Yes, absolutely.
And with that comes economic advantages. Our state prospers.
Yes, absolutely. It's exciting to think about it in those terms. I think that when we talk about a new story for West Virginia, folks often jump to thinking about people outside of our state and the way that they think about us and how that is incorrect. And that absolutely needs to be acknowledged. But also, the real game changer comes from the mindsets of West Virginians and how we can shift those. These stories that have been told largely by people outside of our communities about who we are, how we work, what we believe in, have also influenced our own mindsets about what's possible for ourselves and for our communities. And so if we can tap into those ideas and start to seed new kinds of stories, stories that talk about our communities and our abilities in new ways, that has a lot of potential to influence people and to motivate them to contribute in new ways to their communities.
Well, and I think that's where maybe there's an economic advantage to this, because when people are saying good things and they're excited about their community, other people start to say good things and become excited about their community. And then they're opening businesses and they're spending money, and good stuff happens, right?
Absolutely.
All because we're saying the right things and we're thinking we're just shifting.
That's right. That's right. You know, something that I think about often in relation to this work is population loss and how we're losing so many young people in our communities. And there are narratives around that, right? Some common narratives that I hear are, there's nothing to do here. There's nothing going on. Or, this is a place that I leave after graduation. I'm out of here as soon as I graduate. Or, there are no jobs here. There are no opportunities.
Right.
I have to leave in order to find opportunity.
But if we switch that around, that I want to stay here after I leave, then you create opportunity.
That's right. Or to say, there is opportunity if I find it, if I make it. And after I graduate, it's possible for me to make a home and a life here. And hey, look at all of the cool things that are happening in our community. There's so many things for me to get involved with and engaged in. And so if we start to think about our community in that way, which are all true statements about our community, then we start to shift mindsets in ways that make our community stronger and can make our economy stronger as well.
As we're wrapping up, what do you want people to take away from this conversation?
I want them to take away that change is possible and it's happening today. It's in progress today. And I want them to think about how they'd like to get involved. So my email address is Emma F as in Frank Pepper at gmail.com.
We have that on the screen, right?
That's great.
EmmaFPepper@gmail.com.
That's right. Anyone who's interested in this work is welcome to email me about getting engaged. We also have on the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation's website a page that's all about this narrative change work. And so if folks go to TGKVF.org, they can find out more about the work.
And right. And it's kind of nice to see where we've been and where we're headed. And you can, with this initiative, you can learn that on the website, and folks can reach out to you. I know you're more than happy to bring people into the conversation and find ways for everyone to put that positive spin.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing what happens next. I know there's been several meetings. I've been lucky enough to sit in on some of those groups. Good stuff's happening.
Absolutely.
And I think we need to remember that it is a journey, not a destination, right? That it's going to take us a while to get there.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you so much for being here today. Thanks everyone for joining us. This has been Community Connections, brought to you by the Greater Kanawha Valley Foundation. We hope you learned about narrative change. We hope you're excited to tell positive stories about your community. And we hope you come back and see us next time.